Let's talk about podcasts. I've got a little podcast microphone here in my hand. This is something where, I did 120 episodes of Not Safe for Wonks. It was a great experience. Um, there's so many insights that I wish I had when I started that I have now. And now I can kind of reach back in time and share some of the best insights that I gained from doing this 125 times. I know a lot about how to make a podcast, how to produce it, what some of the ups and downs are, and how you can kind of integrate that smoothly into your organization. And there are obviously like things that I can help you do pretty easily. One of the cool things about podcasts is not that you're going to make the world's next big hit podcast. Like when you sit and make a podcast, a lot of people think they want a retail experience, like they want to make the next cereal, and they get way too caught up in having the world's greatest production values, and that's really not what it is. It's not really what it's about. This is something that's going to make you a star in your niche. And the more specific that your podcast is, the more likely it is that you'll find like your people that really care about your issue and want to be a part of what you are doing. And that's why, yeah, people say, oh, another podcast. Yeah, sure. But like, show me your podcast feed. Odds are you're listening to like 4 podcasts, right? And maybe there's one that's really special to you and that's really specific to your background. So when you're starting a podcast for your organization, don't think about really becoming the next serial so much as becoming that 5th podcast in the rotation for somebody who finds something that's exactly what they want. And you can be that. I've got a little guide. Let me grab it. And this is just what we love most about podcasting. And one of them is the outreach process. And this is just a way to meet the people that you really want to meet. You can get them as guests on your show. This is $1 million advice right out the top of the gate. Invite the person who you want to meet, invite 4 of their friends. And by the time that you've invited, 4 people that know who this person is, then when you send that message and say, hey, come on our podcast, we've had your friend A, your friend B, your friend C, your friend D on the show. Now it's not like you're just out chasing clout, right? You are someone that's talked to them and you've really learned about their culture. You're already a part of their culture if you've talked to 4 of their friends. And industry specialists, just people who you think will make you make an impact, messaging them over time so that by the time you meet that person that's like if you want to have Batman on your podcast, maybe you shouldn't just start right away with Batman. He's going to be a little bit busy. You start with, Lucius Fox. You interview Vicky Vale. You talk to some random in the slums of Gotham. You work your way up Wayne Enterprises. Then you can probably talk to Batman. You've got to have tools and strategy and patience, really, to meet those big guests. And honestly, by the time you meet those guests, what's really cool is the people that you're going to meet along the way are awesome. They're going to be, and in fact, you're going to end up being closer to those people because they aren't inundated with requests to go on podcasts. You know what I mean? They're going to be really open with you, and you're going to learn a lot about what journey they're on and what they've got next. And for us, being able to message well was really important. We would write and trial different messages, and we gave handouts alongside it, especially when we didn't have a lot of guests. So we really have to, you really have to find ways to build trust starting at 0. And that can be documents like this one. You have a good handout and it explains what you're doing in a really good way. And that's logo design, right? It's your handouts and stuff like that. And scheduling is also pretty important. Uh, that's pre-interview messaging. And using a form is a really good way to do this. You can get, if they take a minute and put in their name, their background, their preferred pronouns, what they want to talk about, just make a list of like what a guest would want to have, and you put it in there so that when you're doing research, you've got the questions. And one of the other things we did is we've got a database of interview questions so that by the time they're in the booth with us, and we recorded with Discord, we also recorded with StreamYard. I know a lot of organizations already have Zoom, and you could do a podcast on Zoom if you had to. You know, putting that in place so that you know who the guest is when they come in, and you've got questions to ask them, and they are, and maybe all of the questions that you can ask a person is a whole different podcast episode. But the art of asking a good question is specificity all the time. So it's read their feed. Who are they beefing with? Who are their friends? What is their background? What are their high points? What are their low points? And really, specificity and patience are really what make a good interview. Don't just go to the most important stuff right away. All right. Making sure that that podcast looks good and sounds good. This is really about your hosting and your editing. So for hosting, you can host a podcast anywhere. You can use Anchor.fm. But you know, a paid host is a little simpler. We used Podbean for the longest time and had a great time at Podbean. Just anywhere that holds your audio files is a good enough place. Editing is something where you're really going to be measuring your ability to make a regular investment versus the skill set of who you've got on board. So you can do like hand editing with a tool like Audacity. You can also use machine editing with a tool like Ali2, and it'll do a pretty good job of like controlling your volume levels and just making sure that it looks and sounds good. But also don't stress out about having perfect editing, okay? People care less about audio quality than they do consistency and great conversations and meeting the people that they want to meet. And also, once it's done, syndicating it, audiograms, making sure that there's like a visual version that people can look at. You're going to have audiences that only know about you as an audio show. And you're also going to have audiences that only know about you based on your social media. And don't assume that your social media audience, and you know, I've got clients who, hey, who's your audience on social media? It's 50-year-old women. Those people might not go to your podcast. A podcast is really about helping you develop a new audience. So making sure that you've got something that reaches both of those audiences, and communicating with your guests before and after. And think about your guests almost as like one of the pillars. They're an audience. Your guests are one of your core audiences. And so making sure that you're talking to them before and after the interview, just in the same way that you're doing during, and giving them the resources to reach out to their networks. Because in exchange for that 45 minutes to an hour with you, they're getting the benefit of your consistent outreach, your design, your conscientious interviewing, your editing, your syndication. So an interview will always represent a good value to the person that is receiving the interview as well. It's not just a therapy session. It's not just one-sided. It's a way that you are helping them. So that's it. I mean, podcasting is a many splendored thing, and I hope that you know a little bit more about it now that you've listened to me talk about it. Yeah, that's it.